Are you guys
What's
good?
up?
All
It's the
right.
Vinter Peaks.
We have Vintersea in the house.
Oh, we have Vintersea here because we're playing a show today. So we got folks.
And you know what? I
We got
appreciate you guys taking time before you play your show to chat with me about the record. I really do. I know it's busy times for you guys whenever you're playing a show, and the last thing you want is to talk to this douchebag over here. But
you're the best. You're like the king of the douchebags. It's the best. you're like we love you.
You know, I mean, if you're gonna be the king of something, I think king of douchebags is kind of like the way to go. Something to put on my tombstone. Sorry?
You could be king of suppositories. It could be worse.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So now that you mention it, it is worse. But something to put on my tombstone, I guess. So we're here to talk about Woven into Ashes, the new record from you guys, coming out May 5th on M-Theory. How was it for you guys putting this record together? Was this something that you guys started working on a very long time ago? Or was the process a little bit quicker considering the experience of the previous albums?
Jorma? Oh, well, I mean, kind of a little bit of both, believe it or not. I've had a few of the riffs for quite some time, since like 2018, and I'll kind of bring these ideas into people, and then we'll add on in the band room and all that sort of stuff. So, but all in all, everything pretty much snapped together very quickly.
Yeah, I would say that the process of writing it was pretty long. We've been writing it since before the pandemic started, all through the pandemic. But as far as bringing it together, definitely the experience of doing a couple of records made a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference is just our ability to kind of trust each other to do what we do without feeling like we kind of needed to monitor one another. We sort of were able to break off into little teams, you know, a couple people could work on the riffs, then like the baseline music, a couple people could work on the lyrics, a couple people could work on art and video concepts, and being able to break up the work like that and just trust that it was being done well.
3 years in the making.
A huge time savings.
Yeah.
I would say 3 years because we were making the fabric, like we had these designs and all of that, but we put all the clothes together like maybe in like 6 months at the end.
Yeah. Once we got all the parts in the room together, they kind of came together. But yeah,
it was almost like a shotgun wedding to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, yeah.
And that's you have to give yourself that stick, not just the carrot, but the stick of like, this has to be done by some date or else we'll never get it done. That's everyone in the band. We can just keep iterating and keep working on things indefinitely. So
print it.
Someone, usually this guy, has to give people a date, or it's just not going to happen.
He holds the whip.
you know, like
we get Riley whipped.
There's a couple people in the band that maybe are a little bit ADD, and we definitely need that. We definitely need that. This is the date. Make the date. You know, so I mean,
Make it work. Now, when you look back, not just at this record and the process that went into making this album, but when you look back at the previous records, if you had to pick something that you feel like the band has had the biggest growth from the first album to now, what would you pick as the element that you see the biggest growth with?
With the band as a whole?
Yeah.
Just for me, it's just the cohesiveness of everything. When we made our first record, we gave ourselves a lot of freedom, which was great. I mean, we wrote, 14-minute long songs. We let ourselves play a riff for like 4 or 5 minutes with no vocals or nothing really changing that much, which just kind of comes from our like post-rock, post-metal influences. But then on Illuminated, we tried to kind of constrain ourselves and in a way, constraints maybe not the right word, but we tried to write really tight songs in a way that the songs never really got, iterated for too long. And then on this record, I feel like we were able to bring both together in a way that felt really natural. So we have places where we really let ourselves play. We let ourselves go on for, several minutes, building atmosphere, but we still brought a lot of that tight songwriting and layering into this album. And so in a way, I feel like it's the best of both worlds from our previous 2 efforts.
I would say for me, it's more of the friendship and like the family vibe that we have, because we've been together for 10 years. we've been working together. We've been in the same car for many hours, in the same room for just way too long. So I think as part of like the process, I think we really like have learned our groove in communicating with each other, and that made it a lot easier this time. I think we're all more in sync.
And everybody always talks about the great things that a band achieves in terms of the growth, like you guys just mentioned some of the elements that you see the growth. But what about the weaknesses? Where do you guys still see perhaps some weaknesses that becomes challenging when you're putting a new record together that you hope to overcome with the next album and with the next album?
Oh, the amount of time it takes us to put a record out, I think, is I'm gonna say our only weakness. but it does take us a while to get on the horse a little bit and see. I guess we'll see with what happens with the next record, because honestly, between Illuminated and Woven, we did have that little pandemic thing that happened, and that really set everybody back. So hopefully going forward, it won't be 3 years for another album from us.
Yeah, we'd love to be able to get music out a little bit quicker. The problem is that we're not willing to rush ourselves. You know, it's not worth it. Like, I feel like the fact that we put so much time into our music, it's worth it in the end. But yeah, I agree that just being a little bit more consistent with releases is one of our top goals moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I hope people dig it. We put a lot of ourselves into this album here, and we really explore all sorts of terrain, like musical terrain. So you're gonna hear some things that might not even appear in previous Vintersea albums because of where we're going musically. So hopefully our fans dig it, because it's still Vintersea. It's still very us.
I think if they're on board with Vintersea by now, they know they can expect the unexpected.
Yeah, and that's the other interesting thing with that strengths and weaknesses conversation, is that it kind of depends on who we're playing for, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for some people are gonna see weaknesses on this album that we will not accept as weaknesses because it was important to us in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I mean, some people, you know, we've started seeing reviews and they've been great, but a couple of things that have been mentioned is like, oh, they switched genres so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like what we do.
Yeah.
And you know, the people that love our music, that they're in for that. And so
me personally,
we're not gonna change it.
I noticed the same thing as well, but I felt somehow, and this was what the really interesting for me when I already recorded the review. I'm going to have it up this week. And I agree with that point of view in terms of the change in genres and how different the songs feel in terms of the starting point and the finish line from track to track. But somehow it still felt like I was listening to you guys, regardless of where the songs were going. And that kind of brings me to my next question. I don't know exactly. I had a really hard time explaining to people in a video how I felt, because the songs are different, but they still feel like your songs. But I couldn't pinpoint why they felt like your songs, even though they're different. It really drove me nuts. And do you guys know the answer to that question?
Man, I don't think we do.
I don't know the answer, but I know what you're talking about, because we feel that way all the time when we're writing. You know, we're writing these riffs and it's like, boy, this sounds like maybe it's not the same song in the moment. But then we just know. And I think it's, as we talked about earlier with, you know, starting to trust each other more, just trusting the process as well. And trusting that if we put this material into the machine and let, you know, Jorma do his orchestration thing, I think that's part of it that makes the whole album sound cohesive, is that we have this layer of orchestration going on underneath. It's certainly what Avian does with the vocals and the vocal layering and just her unique tone of voice. It's the same across the album, or it at least has, you know, it comes back throughout the album, the different things she does. And so I think in that way, that is where some of the cohesiveness comes from. But part of it's just that we trust it's going to work.
We trust I feel like at this point we trust each other to give each other that reign to express ourselves fully. It's definitely, it's taken a while. It's a process and it's a journey, but like, even for myself, I'm very open to what the guys want to do, or even how I should change the way that I approach something in the music. It's because we all want it to sound the best.
Yeah, we do. And honestly, don't forget that we haven't really had any lineup changes, you know, aside from bass players. But once Carl hopped on, we've been basically the same band, you know, for quite some time. So
who cares about bass players anyways?
Yeah, I mean, we
Until you need one.
we joke about that a lot, but let me tell you, it's, you know, you're glad to have them to bring that thunder for sure. But I mean, you know, we're all the same people, right? We're the same, you know, in the same room, basically, you know, and that, I think that's a really imperative part of how we sound. The only thing that changes is where we are in our life, and we bring that into what we write. And that's what makes each album a little bit more different. So yeah.
I found three main core, and not to diss the bass players, but I found three main core elements in this record, and that was the drum sound. I thought was really important. Obviously, the guitar sound and how diverse the guitars were, using acoustic elements like prog elements, post-rock elements. I mean, like there's a lot to digest there. And then Avian's vocals. I want to start off with the vocals. I felt this album, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception after listening to the record, I don't know how many times, is that there's a lot more clean vocals than harsh vocals. I would say maybe, you know, 65% clean vocals. Then you do the math, the rest is the harsh vocals. And I really enjoy the clean vocals. Not that I don't like the harsh vocals, but the clean vocals on this album, from my standpoint, you felt a little bit more free, a little bit more organic, and you went in places that I hadn't really seen you go before. Like there were some songs that you almost had some jazz elements in the way that you were singing. Not that the song sounded like a jazz song, don't get me wrong, that's not what I mean, but just the way you're pronouncing the words, the way you're giving emphasis to certain words in the lyrics, it kind of gave that cabaret jazz feel to it. How much of that we will see going forward? Are you going to continue to use the harsh vocals to balance out the clean vocals, or do you see more room in your clean vocal range to really do a lot more with the band?
There really isn't any sort of math when it comes to the way I approach what I'm going to write or how I'm going to perform a part in the song. When the song starts to form and it's time to write that part, what I do is I really get into that mind space and really hop into the music as if like my mind is melded into the song, and then feel it, figure out what the message is going to be in the song, and then express it vocally. I really think of my voice as an instrument, and I like exploring different types of styles and techniques. And whatever you hear, it's because when I'm hopped into that part of the song, that's how I want to express that message at that time. So it's whatever I'm feeling, bro. It's what I'm feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. It really comes across. It just, I don't know, it felt like you were more comfortable, more carefree, not really concerned about what the outcome was going to be, but trusting the process that the outcome was going to be exactly what the song needed to be. And I think that really comes across throughout the entire album. And then on the guitar side, you have these great acoustic melodies. You have a lot of melodic elements. You have some black metal elements as well in terms of the density of the sound of the guitars, how dense it is, prog elements. Like, I mean, there's so many things. How do you guys bring this melting pot of guitar sounds and somehow make it all work?
Well, going back to the ADD thing, it's funny to say, but I really think that's what it is. Like a lot of people will ask, like, how do you write your songs? What are your song structures? And really, I have no idea. I will literally sit there and I will riff, and then Riley or Jeremy will say, pick that one.
It's an awesome thing to see. When he's just riffing and just jamming, it's enjoyable to hear him just go.
And the worst part is I'll be like, huh? I forgot. And then so Riley will have his camera going and he'll just wind it back.
Or I'll learn it.
Or he'll learn it. Yeah. And a lot of times that's how a lot of the idea will come forward. If all of my band family is really gelling on a riff that I'm doing, that's the money. That's what we're going to focus on, because I need to inspire her to write these amazing lyrics and melodies to make you guys believe what we're trying to prove. And I think that's how we do it.
And I can say from my perspective, because I tend to be there for all of it. Like I work on the lyrics with Avian, I work with the riffs with Jorma and Jeremy, and the structuring of the songs, which a lot of times is me and Jeremy. And you know, Jorma there giving the great ideas that bring it all together. But I can say from being able to watch everyone that a lot of it does just come down to the fact that they do feel more free. I mean, for sure, going back to what you're talking about with Avian, she asked several times, you know, do you guys think that this is too raw? Do you think it's too emotional? And every time it was like, if you're feeling it, if you were in the studio recording that lyric and you had like a tear running down your cheek, that's the take we're keeping. I don't care if your voice cracked. I don't care if the, you know, note was a little bit more jazzy or whatever. Like that's great. That's what we're here for. Perfect music is getting a little boring, to be honest. You know, like music that's just kind of goes through the machine, gets perfectly tuned on every single note, doesn't really have any emotion to it. And the fact that we were able to, you know, we were still in the studio trying to make sure the music was solid, but at the same time, we really, the lead elements, we let them, I think, feel it a little bit more on this one.
It's great to have feedback that you can trust. So I know that I overthink a lot, especially doing something, and I think both of us are kind of like idea makers and idea producers, but that also comes down to the process where we have Riley, where we can take out, like, we can make train tracks, but Riley takes those tracks and then he lays them down.
Jeremy too.
Jeremy too, yeah.
Jeremy really helps a lot with the structuring of the songs. It's that engineer brain, man.
For sure. Yeah, he can be so, like, while the rest of us are super hot under the collar about something, Dadbot can come in and say, which basically translates to, so what is the best thing for Vintersea?
Yeah.
So, and that's usually, and he can usually pull that out with, like, it looks like almost no feeling, but he has feelings.
He has feelings.
It's down deep.
It's down deep.
So we covered the guitars, we covered the vocals. I have to ask you guys about the drums in terms of how you feel like they sound on this record, because I thought the drum sound on this album was outstanding from beginning to end. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's heavy when it needs to be. It's a little bit more subtle and subdued when the songs really called for it. But I really enjoy the energy that infused the tracks, or how much it grounded the songs, because it was either infusing tons of energy or was really grounding the tracks. How you guys, when you guys have a chance to look at that drum sound and the impact that it has in the Vintersea sound, where do you see the drums falling in?
Gosh, I don't know if Jeremy can get any better than he is right now.
Oh,
I mean, like,
He can.
yeah, he's improved so much. I really love that he's really exploring different types of styles. We're all just growing together as a band, and just really expressing everything that we can express, each of us individually, Jeremy included. And I just get really, like, I'm really glad to be in a band where I admire each one of my bandmates. I mean, Jorma, Riley, Carl, and Jeremy, and even in the band room, when I see him doing his thing, it's like, damn, he's good.
He works out. You can tell he works out. Yeah, no, seriously, the guy's a machine. Like, on this album in particular, I mean, he just really delivers technique-wise. I mean, his speed. I mean, and he hammers. He really hammers, like you said, when he needs to. And, you know, he's exploring a little bit about the subtler side of Jeremy Spencer, which I think is exciting too. Because, I mean, you can really only get so fast before you start sounding like a typewriter, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the important things about this record, is that he really helps create some ebbs and flows in the tracks, not just depending on the changes in riffs or changes in tempos. He's doing that with the drum sound and with his approach. And I thought maybe it'll go unnoticed, because everybody always pays attention to the guitar sound. Everybody always pays attention to how the vocals are coming across by the mixing, mastering, all of that stuff, but in the production behind it. But I thought the drum sound was outstanding on this entire album, really.
You take Unveiling Life, for example. You know, when just before we go into the guitar solo, we have that extended break where Riley and I are playing literally just 16ths the whole time, and he is playing double bass, and then he drops from a blast into this like groovy thing, and it just elevates that part so much. And, you know, you're thinking about it, and like, I would never have thought of doing something like that, but this guy will come in and he will do some wild ass thing, and it will be just what it needed. That's that whole trust process.
He's very much a perfectionist too, but in a really good way.
I've been playing music with Jeremy since we were both 17 years old. And so I've seen him go from, you know, buying his first metal drum set all the way up to, you know, where he is now. And he's always had that feel and that sensibility. but it's just that the technical chops have caught up now. Yeah, he's put in the time, he's had the hours. I think that, you know, as terrible as COVID was for everybody, would give everyone a chance to woodshed if they wanted to take it, and a few of us did, and it really shows on this record.
I have to ask you guys about Lonesome Types. So what the hell is this song? Is this a folk song disguised as a prog song? Is this a prog song disguised as a folk song? What is happening in this song? I love the track, but it was such a, you know, a mind fuck, for a lack of a better term, in terms of all the nuances that it offers and all the sounds that you guys infused in it. What's this song?
I mean, we've always said that, you know, when it comes to what is the Vintersea sound, it's like black metal sea shanty. Maybe that's one way to look at it, and it definitely has that feeling. I remember when that one came together real fast. Jorma had pretty much the guitar stuff figured, and then Avian just came in with vocals that just kind of blew everyone away real quick, and it was really exciting to watch that one come together. And then we had the idea that, hey, we have some pretty talented friends that we could feature on this one, and that's where the kind of surprising, you know, native flute comes in. That's Tommy Graven. He's a local guy who's very talented. He worked on a Scale to Summit record a couple of years ago, and that was one of the first times I'd heard that sound in metal music. But yeah, that was a fun song to bring together, and definitely a good example of how we're not afraid to try anything.
The crazy thing about that, from a music standpoint, a guitar standpoint, it's basically the same progression throughout the whole song, just played in different ways. So that's kind of how I like to approach the progressive element. A lot of people will take it to uber technical and look how many notes I can cram into 1 second. I like to basically exploit the 12 notes that we have in Western harmony as much as possible. So if that means I'm taking one chord progression and beating the hell out of it for 6.5 minutes, like this song, then yeah. But if you're listening to it, you don't notice that it's the same chords throughout most of the whole song. Yeah, and I think that's hard.
Definitely one of my favorite songs of the album. Now, when I look, I have some. I'm leaving some gems for last here, but I have to ask you guys this, because if there's one thing that I feel like this album falls a little bit short, is on the internal design and structure. I think you guys picked a great opening song. I honestly don't think there's a better opening song on this record. And I think you guys picked an incredible closing track. So you have the two perfect bookends. In the middle, I felt sometimes a little bit of a disconnect because of the variety of soundscapes that the album offers. And I've seen this before in previous records, so it's not something that I haven't seen before. Looking back, and maybe taking my words into consideration, is that something that you feel like it could be done a little bit better in order to create more of a continuous, uninterrupted flow, if you will, for those that are going to listen to the album from start to end?
That's interesting, because well, I guess basically we consider this like if you took Illuminated, the cohesiveness of Illuminated, and you took all the wild and crazy turns we took from Gravity of Fall. This, if you put those all together, this is kind of a more refined version of those two. So we took a little bit, how do I say this? The cohesiveness of Illuminated with a lot of the prog elements of Gravity, and we're okay with that. I think that that's when we came to that realization, we were like, oh wow, this is what that is, and it seemed like kind of the right progression for us.
Yeah, I love the progression of this album and the way it goes up and down and around, because the concept of the album is the life cycle of a soul. And in life, there's going to be really high highs and really low lows, and you're just going to have you're going to explore a lot of different sights and sounds on that journey. And I think this album encapsulates that.
Yeah, the only thing I remember, you know, on Illuminated, we played around a lot with kind of transitions between songs, and we had some really long ones. And on this record, we didn't do that at all, which we hadn't really done on Gravity of Fall either. And that's one thing, when you were talking and I was thinking about the structure of the album, it's one thing that might be worth revisiting. Yeah. Maybe some shorter transitions.
I agree 100%. And I think it would have, I mean, the record is solid, don't get me wrong, but I think it would really elevate the overall cohesiveness of the record. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. No,
Yeah,
that's really good feedback, actually.
And I don't mean this as a negative at all, because I really enjoyed the album. I really enjoyed the songs, but I just felt like it would have helped the diversity that the album has, because the album is super diverse, right? So, you know, it was, for me, it took a few listens to the record to understand the motion in the ocean in order for me to feel comfortable in it. And I think if those connections were there from the get-go, then that journey for me to get to that point would have been shorter. You know what I mean? Like I would have gotten
kind of like a bridge.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So next time you call me and I'll help you with the production. That's
makes sense. Run it by you.
I'll get you on speed dial.
So you guys, I have a couple more questions for you. You guys are going to be doing some touring this year. Unfortunately, the tour that you're on is not playing in Toronto. So I've been crying quite a bit. The fact that I'm not going to see you guys. Are you guys planning more tours? Is this album now going to open the doors for you guys to hit the road on a more consistent basis and playing, you know, not just in the US, but coming into Canada, playing some more shows on the East Coast?
That's the goal. I mean, this will be our first time even crossing an international border. We're just going to Vancouver, BC, but it'll be our first time. So everyone's fully passported and good to go. And yeah, I mean, the whole idea with, you know, this progression is that if this album does as well as we hope it does, if it reaches the people we hope it does, that we'll be able to tour significantly more.
Yeah, because really, I mean, I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to money. Like, you know, unfortunately, being a musician doesn't really pay a lot of bills, and everything is super expensive these days. So we still have to kind of do our day jobs, you know.
We got day jobs.
We literally shoehorn as much as we possibly can into our personal schedules so we can make this band that we love so much happen. But we really would love to get to Canada. We really would love to get to the East Coast. I say back because I'm from the East Coast, but yeah. So that's all in the goals.
Maybe is some Vintersea Foot diaries on OnlyFans. I don't know. Apparently that's a thing now. People like to see. So
Jeremy works out the most from all of us.
Right?
Of all of us.
But I got the size 20s.
He's got the size 20s.
All the size queens are in love with this.
All the feet together is a big bukkake of feet going on. You know,
a little Vintersea foot cocky.
Yeah. If it gets us to Toronto, I'm in.
Right, for sure.
You know what? If you guys come here, dinner is on me. So at least you don't have to worry about that.
That'd be
Can
awesome.
we say footsies?
Yeah, and we can do that too. We can do that too. One last question for you guys. Outside of the fact that I'm claiming you as Canadian, and from now on you're part of our Canadian heritage moments. And I don't care what people say. You guys are Canadian. You guys have a Canadian vibe. Honestly, you do. Like you're one of those bands that you feel like you're more Canadian than what you really are. So I'm just from now on, anytime we check out a video, you guys are Canadian. That's what I'm going to go with.
I love it.
What misconceptions are there about the band? Do you guys read comments and videos and social media and see massive misconceptions that people have, and you're just not bothered to reply, but in the back of your mind, it kind of like bothers you a tiny bit?
I think for me, it's like when I do like certain things in music videos, let's say if I dress a certain way, or if I like move a certain way, they're thinking it's because all the guys are like pressuring me or asking me to do these things. Yeah, it's never like that. However I appear in a music video, however I dress, 100 million zillion % is because I pushed for it and I wanted to do it. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. It's like, oh, like it's a pity that they made Avian do this. It's like, no, it's very collaborative. I'm the one that wants to do that and has like a lot of the times is the one with the idea.
And it's always for a purpose.
Yeah.
Like if there's a video where you feel like your character or the place you're coming from with the vocals is supposed to be more vulnerable, you need to appear more vulnerable to get into the character, and that's always really helped you get into that space. So yeah, there's always a purpose for anything that's in any of our videos. And yeah, no one's pressuring anyone to do anything they don't want to do.
It just goes to show you that those people really don't know us as people, like, because like none of us are like that. We're just like, you know, do your thing, you know, it's not hurting anybody, do your thing, you know. So I guess that makes us a little more Canadian. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it also, I mean, it actually says a lot about how they view you, Avian. Like they think you don't have a mind of your own and you're just like a bot that everybody tells you what to, just because you're a chick. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's kind of how it comes across when I read those comments. Like, you don't have a mind of your own to make your own decisions and to do your own thing. Like, the guys in the group are I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous, but it surprises me anymore.
Luckily, it's not a lot, not a lot of
Not a
people.
lot,
but what do they call that? Virtue signaling or something like
Yeah,
that?
little white knight action,
Yeah.
trying to swoop in and save Avian from the evils of this metal band.
Never mind, she's been in this terrible relationship for 10 years of her own volition.
Because y'all made me here.
Right, we did.
Y'all made me stay in this band for 10 years.
We ball gag her, tie her up, and stick her in the closet. After this, she's going back in the closet.
Those are some good ideas, by the way.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the music videos that you guys do is your take on the patriarchy and how you really take that and push it into the forefront, and how you try to break down that whole patriarchy that exists in metal and in life in general. I honestly, every time you guys release a video, I get so excited because it gives me a chance to be a dumbass and analyzing the video in the complete wrong way, which I have so much fun doing it anyways.
Beautiful.
It's just, you guys don't even know how much pleasure I get from watching the video and coming up with these crazy ideas about the patriarchy. I just absolutely, when I see those videos hitting my feet, I'm like, ah, yes, I get to be a dumbass. I love it.
Brilliant.
One of the first things that I remember Avian saying to me was, I don't want to be a good vocalist for a girl. I just want to be a good vocalist.
Yes.
That was 10 years ago. And I mean, her vocals have grown just insanely since then. But even at that time, she was just a good vocalist, not just good for a girl. And, you know, that's such a just infantilizing opinion that people have sometimes. It's like, oh, she's pretty good for a girl. But we don't hear that very much anymore because she's just a good vocalist.
Been putting work in for a long ass time.
Yeah.
Like, there are still a few closet dipshits out there that think that she's a good vocalist for a girl. Well, you know, come to a show. Come to a show and watch her actually do this stuff with just a microphone. Your head will explode like everybody. So come on, come out. We'll take that challenge and we'll melt your freaking face.
I feel like everybody needs to come and see you guys on the tour that you guys are going to be with Moonspell, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
You know, and my Portuguese friends, I know Fernando really well. I know those guys really well. Actually, Fernando in Portugal lives very close to where I'm from. We're technically neighbors. We live like 20 minutes apart from each other. And I love those guys. I love that band. So I'm really happy to see you guys hitting the road with them. Like I said, I'm just sad that there's no Toronto date, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you guys will come up here, visit your homeland of Canada on the East Coast very soon. It'll be
You have to return home.
Let's go home.
yeah, the long-awaited return. You know what I mean? You know, the prodigal son returns, and daughter. Sons and daughters return. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Like I said,
Thank you, Pedro.
So thank you. I love you guys. I think you guys are like an incredible band. One of the few bands that releases albums that always finds a way of surprising me and keeping me interested in what you guys are doing. Really interesting work. I hope this record opens all the doors that you guys want open, and I wish you nothing but the best to all of you.
Thank you. We love you, man.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to
Keep
see you
making
next
those
video.
videos, please.
We will.
It's
We will.
good for my brain. I need those every so often.
You wait to see the
We
next
need
one.
to hear your commentary on the patriarchy.
Yes, you're going to have a lot of patriarchal commentary about the next one.
All right. I'm looking forward to that. See you guys.
All right, see ya.
See ya.
Bye.